Well, as we are all here in a massive worldwide quarantine as a result of COVID-19, I decided it was time for another episode of Ask RGD. COVID-19 Quarantine Edition. Quarantine Day 8 or something. I don't know. I lost count already. Let's get to an Ask RGD question, shall we? This question is from Male Vila. Post 3/25/2020. Posted the date. Says, what do you think of the Fender Tone Master solid state amp? I think they are way overpriced. No effects loop, and no headphone jack. The has a switch on the back, which is no less than a volume knob. You know, the Fender Tone Master amps actually, I think they're interesting. And you know, before I say anything about about some of the features on that amp, you know, Fender actually were in our office where I worked my full-time job, and they were demoing. You know, they brought in a number of products that they were showing us. This is right before the holiday season, and the Tone Master amps had just recently been released, and that is the amp that they brought with them that they were demoing everything through. And I was, this is a fairly small conference room, with 15 or 20 of us in there, and I was kind of all the way in the back of the room. I was already pretty familiar with this stuff. I was just in there because I was told to attend, and because I think Fender and guitar gear are cool. But I was all the way in the back of the room, and as he's got the Fender reps were playing some of the stuff through this amp. What I probably the first half hour, 40 minutes I was in there, I thought it was a deluxe reverb, just a regular 65 reissue deluxe reverb. Finally, I noticed after that much time that it was actually one of the Tone Master series. So, I mean, tone-wise, it's that close. It's really, really close to an actual deluxe reverb. It had me fooled, and I'm not sure I ever would have noticed if I hadn't, looked down far enough and saw the little Tone Master badge sitting there on the bottom portion of the grill cloth. So, sound-wise, I think they sound really, really good. As far as the features on the back, it has an attenuation switch, on the back, to control, of course, attenuation, volume, things of that nature. In your comment, you mentioned a headphone jack. Most amps that size are not going to have a headphone jack on them. There are exceptions, and, in your comment, after I replied to you, and you actually replied back and mentioned a Randall amp and, I think another modeling amp that you said you owned that are both, mid to larger size combos, fairly high wattage. They have headphone jacks on them. There are exceptions. There absolutely are exceptions, but the vast majority of amplifiers that are that size are not going to have a headphone jack. You also mentioned the lack of an effects loop on that amp, and I have to assume that the reason they didn't put the effects loop on that amp is because the actual deluxe reverb doesn't have an effects loop on it. The deluxe reverb is, today, especially nowadays, with the boutique pedal boom, and everything that we've seen going on here for the last 10 years or so, the deluxe reverb is regarded as a very, very good pedal platform, and it's such a clean sounding amp. You really don't necessarily need an effects loop, because just about anything you run through the front end of it sounds awesome. That's one of the attractions to that amp, at least these days. Here's the thing with the Tone Master series. They're price wise, yeah, they're pricey, no question. In the instance of the deluxe reverb, what are they, $8.99, I think. The twin reverb, I think, is $9.99. For a solid state amp that models one amp, absolutely, that's a lot of money. They're expensive. Here's what Fender's doing. Fender's testing the market with this. That's what they're doing. Fender are testing the market to see if there is actually a market for this sort of thing, and money to be made. And by this sort of thing, I'm referring to a solid state digital modeling version of a specific well-known, famous amp model. Something that, because we're all familiar with the twin reverb, we're all familiar with the deluxe reverb, and those are along with the Princeton, those are Fender's, their two most famous legendary amplifiers. And the argument can be made for the Bassman and a couple of others, I'm sure, but but for the most part, the bread and butter Fender amps are the deluxe reverb and the twin reverb. So what they're doing is they are taking a very, very high quality digital imprint of that amplifier and creating a solid state amp, something that's going to be lighter weight and has the advantages of solid state amplification, and there are plenty of those, and as well as the advantages of digital modeling, and combining the two and seeing how well they sell. There are Fender fanatics that are going to buy it just because it's Fender. And that's okay, and those, you have to expect those people to buy it, but you move past those people and, then, you might start catering a little bit to a crowd, say my age and older, guys like me who might want, that kind of a tone in an amplifier, but don't feel like lugging around, twin reverb especially. I mean, those things are 80 pounds, what are those, 60, 80 pounds or something like that. I mean, those things are heavy, so to be able to capture that tone, along with a few other modern day features in the same amplifier for a lot, in a much lighter and easier to lug around package, that's appealing to a lot of people out there, and the older a lot of people get, again, the more appealing that is. And you also have the crowd that maybe they've always wanted a deluxe reverb or a twin reverb, or one of those two, but because they can't crank them because there's those two amps, the twin reverb especially, is ungodly loud. Maybe they've always wanted that tone, but they've never bought it because one, maybe the price tag, and two, because of how loud you got to crank it to get it to sound the way that it needs to sound, because it's a tube amp. That's what tube amps are about. So the Tone Master series are a way for that player to again get his hands on the same tone, or in the same ballpark anyway. There is always going to be the argument of the diehard tube guy that says you will never ever be able to capture the all the characteristics of a tube amp and a digital modeling imprint of some kind. And as it sits today, here in March of 2020, where technology sits today, I agree. It's never going to be identical. However, the technology has come quite a ways, and I can only assume that one day that it's going to get there, because it is already, here I've seen the last 10 years, really even the last 5 years, that technology has gotten a lot better at mimicking, some of the more subtle differences of tube amps in a digital solid state package. So yeah, I think they're interesting. They are pricey, and again, that's because of the advanced technology that's in it. Those prices are going to come down eventually. I have to assume. But right now, they're pricey, and they're going to stay pricey for a few years. That's just what they have to do in order to pay for their investment and research and development and manufacturing and all that kind of stuff. So. They're going to be pricey for a few years, but I do believe that the price is going to come down eventually, and they may have a new model that comes out to replace it by then. I don't know. But I think it's interesting, and, Fender are a big enough company that, they can afford to test the waters on this and see, as I mentioned before, see if there's actually a market for it. And if there is, they're going to continue it and come out with, with some later generations and things of that nature. And if they don't, they're going to can it and discontinue it and, throw it in the archives, and that'll be the end of it. Here's another question here from Douglas Gagne. He says, "Hey Robert, great content. What is your all-time favorite guitar pickup?" I actually did another Ask RGD episode on this very topic here very recently, covering a much broader variety of pickup conversation. So I'll post a link to that down there in the description. Please feel free to check that one out. But, you know, my all-time favorite pickup, definitely the Seymour Duncan JB model. Best pickup on the planet. It is extremely versatile. It, you know, it can do the high gain, high output thing really, really well. But unlike a lot of other high gain, high output pickups, you know, you can roll the volume knob back and it actually cleans up extremely well. You know, you can, you know, the volume control on the guitar somewhere in between is, you know, is real good for that blues crunch kind of sound. You know, of course, depending on the amplifier that you're running it into, is just an extremely versatile pickup. And there are so many artists out there, well-known artists, that has been their pickup of choice forever. Yeah, and it's been around for a long time. You know, it happens to be, you know, the favorite pickup of Seymour Duncan himself, especially when paired with the Jazz model pickup, the Seymour Duncan Jazz model, which is, you know, I agree, that's, you know, that is probably my favorite pickup set, which Duncan actually sells those two paired together in a set called the Hot Rodded Humbucker set. You know, so from an output standpoint, it's really, really versatile, you know, and, you know, I think it also is a really, really, you know, articulate, clean sounding pickup. It doesn't get muddy at all. At least not in anything that I've ever tried it in. You know, so it's a really clean, articulate sounding pickup. Does a real good job of picking up the articulation, percussive articulation characteristics of your picking style. You know, you can hear everything with that pickup, from the pickup, you know, the picking nuances from your pick hand, as well as the actual tone of the wood of the guitar. You know, I think it does a really good job of capturing the sound of the guitar itself and amplifying that. So there's a reason why it's as popular as it is, and why so many people have used it. You know, and there's plenty of people out there that don't like it as well, but for the most part, you know, most people seem to really like it. It's a very popular pickup. Just like any other pickup out there, I do not want it in every guitar that I own, but it is definitely, the JB and the Jazz are definitely my go-to pickup set if I'm in a position that I'm swapping them out in a guitar. So, oh, and they're also one of the more affordable American-made pickups on the market. So I think they both, the JB and the Jazz, each sell for around the $80 mark or so, US, brand new. So, you know, a lot of other, you know, some of these other pickups out there are getting pretty expensive nowadays, $150 a piece. That's, you know, that's a lot of money for, you know, for a copper wire wrapped around a magnet. So, thank you, Mail Vila and Douglas Gagne, for your questions here today. I always enjoy doing these Ask RGD videos. You can also submit your question and have it answered in an Ask RGD video of your very own. All of my contact information is listed down in the description box of this video, so you can submit your question to me here either via email, via Facebook Messenger, or you can do it the easy way, just leave it right down there in the comments section. So, please feel free to leave me your guitar or guitar-related questions, and I will answer your said guitar or guitar-related questions in a video. Please consider hitting the subscribe button down below, comment down below, and links to everything discussed in this video will be down in the description for you to check out as well. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, everybody.